Розпочинаємо митну платформу 2026.
Let us start Customs Platform 2026. Dear guests, good afternoon, dear participants, dear colleagues, those who are in Kiev here who are present offline. We are in a shelter. That's why if there is an air raid alert, we can stay here. And the second important announcement, we have simultaneous interpretation into English. So if you need, please take your headphones to be able to hear the interpretation into English, into Ukrainian. Those guests who have joined us online today, please find this well-known Zoom icon. Please click on it and select the channel. And to open today's meeting, I would like to give the floor to Mr. Sergei Marchenko, the Minister of Finance of Ukraine. Good afternoon, dear guests, dear participants of the conference. It is a very important event. It is not that so often that we meet to discuss customs issues, but we can do this today. We have key stakeholders here, the changes in the customs legislation to bring our legislation in closer to the EU acquis. We have key stakeholders here today. We do understand what we have already done, what we still have to do, what are our tasks. In the nearest future, we are planning to present the new customs code and to take other steps to speed up our accession to the EU and our alignment with the EU acquis. Our today's discussion will help us to synchronize our positions, to discuss our challenges and the next steps. I would like to thank the representatives of line committees, in particular Danilo Hetmantsov in the Verkhovna Rada, for supporting the reform and other activities. Would like to thank EU for PFM and other projects that help us to move these processes. And also the team of the Ministry of Finance that every day works to make us as ready as possible to the accession to the EU. And I believe that this conference is a very important event. And I hope that we will have some good time here, that we will be able to discuss some difficult issues related to the customs affairs. Thank you. Thank you, Sergei. I am Vladislav Suvorov, the Deputy Head of the State Customs Service, and would like to discuss the agenda. So we will have the first strategic session to discuss AEO and common transit and also NCTS. Then we will have a coffee break. And then we will have sessions precisely dedicated to AEO and NCTS. And today we will have the representatives of the companies who have experience of functioning with NCTS, with authorizations. We will have Q&A sessions today. And those guests who have joined us today through Zoom. So please leave your questions in the chat, and during a week, we will give you answers, in particular through our social media. Then we will have a lunch break, and hopefully we'll be able to start our lunch in a timely manner. And the next session will be dedicated to the discussion of our future, the steps. We will have the key Ukrainian and European experts working on the new customs code. This session will be really very interesting, and hopefully you will be able to stay with us till the very end. This event is supported by the Ministry of Finance and EU for PFM, and now I would like to start the first strategic session The European integration is a guideline for customs reform, from harmonization of legislation to practical results. The customs plan for 2026 is dedicated to the practical implementation of European integration changes in the customs area of Ukraine. This is the functioning of AEO system and NCTS. Today, customs reform is one of the most important areas of Ukraine's preparation for access to the European Union. We will discuss it later in more details. The European Union is a customs union, and perhaps the customs area is the most important, but without the basics, the further European integration is impossible. And it is very important to meet all the standards. In the European integration, we have a lot of tasks like harmonization of legislation, development of customs IT systems in accordance with the EU requirements, practical implementation of customs processes corresponding to the European ones, and of course, strengthening trust between the state and business and forming a modern customs administration. This is very important. That is why today's discussion combines the political, institutional, and practical dimensions of customs reform. Within the framework of this strategic session, we will discuss the role of customs reform in the process of Ukraine's accession to the EU, expectations of the European partners, and priorities for the development of the Ukrainian customs systems in the upcoming years. And now I would like to introduce our distinguished speakers. This is Matthias Pechka, Director for Customs, Directorate General for Taxation and Customs Union, DG Taxud. He's online with us today. Taras Kachka, Deputy Prime Minister of Ukraine for European and Euro-Atlantic Integration of Ukraine. Danila Hetmantsov, Chairman of the Committee of the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine on Finance, Tax and Customs Policy. Sergei Marchenko, Minister of Finance of Ukraine. And Sergei Zvagentsov, Acting Head of the State Customs Service of Ukraine. So today, these speakers will ask me questions. Usually they ask me questions, but...
And dear Mr. Pechka, are you with us?
Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
Hello, Mr. Pechka. Very
Yes.
Yes, very nice to see you, very nice to hear you. Dear Mr. Pechka, on our mind, we have excellent cooperation with DJ Taxud. We are 24/7 on contact, and we have very fruitful customs subcommittees meetings recent years. And with this regards, I would like to ask, how do you evaluate progress of Ukraine customs and custom legislation recent years, and what your expectation of our future urgent steps to become closer to European Union?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Suvorov, dear Vladislav. It is a pleasure to be with you today. Thank you very much for the invitation to this conference. Dear Minister of Finance, distinguished ministers and directors, dear participants, I would like to start by thanking Mr. Suvorov for arranging this event and for inviting the European Commission to this important debate. We continually follow the progress made by the Ukrainian State Customs Service. We did so specifically and very intensely over the last month. But it's not just following in the sense of monitoring. It is engaging with your services to cooperate very closely. We have established almost daily contacts with the Customs Service and continue our assistance in drafting of customs legislation, improvements in IT systems, capacity building measures. In short, we stand with you, we stand with Ukraine. And obviously, despite our hopes and efforts over the last year and before the meeting takes again place in difficult circumstances due to the unjustified aggression by Russia. We have a response to this, which is solid cooperation between the EU and Ukraine, a cooperation which we want to become stronger every day. Let me say some words about the different panels. I have the program here in front of me. I see the first panel on AEO policy. In October last year, our representatives attended the EU-Ukraine Customs Subcommittee in Uzhhorod, Ukraine, and despite very fruitful results of the subcommittee, we could see the enormous challenges and at the same time also the important improvements at the Ukrainian border crossing points with Slovakia and Hungary. But let me just indicate one specific observation. We have noticed dedicated stands for AEO operators at the border crossing points. And that is actually a trade facilitation measure we recommend to all member states. And I know Mr. Suvorov is keen to improve the Ukrainian AEO program. Well, it must be with a lot of satisfaction that you see the installation of this dedicated infrastructure, which is setting a benchmark. Thank you very much for your personal commitment to the AEO program. The topic will be discussed in detail in a moment under a panel, and Taxud representatives will take part in this discussion. Let me say some brief words about the second one on NCTS transit. The title is NCTS as a Success Story, EU Transit Simplifications and Border Without Queues. I have nothing to add to that. Indeed, Ukraine is a good example of success in accession to the Common Transit Convention and the NCTS system. About 250 movements daily confirm the success story every day. So, congratulations, customs colleagues. During the panel, you will discuss some challenges, including implementation of the next phases of NCTS, closing of movements at border crossing points instead of inland, etc. These challenges are common for Ukraine and all contracting parties, and we will overcome them together. We are happy that Moldova has joined the convention recently, and Ukraine offered its assistance. Smooth movement of goods in transit across borders is of high importance in times of continuous Russian attacks on Odessa, Danube river ports, and railway infrastructures. It is also crucial at crossroads like Reni, Giurgiulești, Galatz, border crossing points located very close to each other. Referring to this example, let me appreciate Ukraine's engagement in coordinated border control project in Reni. Customs legislation, another panel, and that is a crucial one. Integration of customs legislation with the EU is key for the EU enlargement in customs and the trade domain. Let me present my words of very high appreciation for your engagement and commitment to the enlargement process, despite the war. I believe you are about to send the draft of the new Ukrainian Customs Code to the Parliament. The draft covers both the provisions based on the Union Customs Code and the duty relief regulation provisions. There are also other important components in the draft, for instance, the structure of the state customs service and its governance. The text has been consulted with both the Ukrainian business community and the European Commission services, and the EU experts assisted you in drafting. In result, the new code is one of the most comprehensive pieces of legislation in Ukraine, and we believe it is a big step towards full integration with the EU. Let me also congratulate you personally, Mr. Suvorov and Mr. Moskalenko, for your leadership in this process. The role of the experts of EU4 PFM is not to be forgotten. And let me thank Jurgita, Vitenis, Sarunas, and other colleagues from that team for your enormous work. We hope to have the new customs code adopted before the summer break. And yes, we know that this is a challenging timeline. However, we believe it is feasible. We can ensure Mr. Hetmantsev that EU experts stay available for consultations, assistance during the next step in the legislative process, and we are happy to cooperate closely with the Verkhovna Rada and the relevant commissions. You have mentioned very briefly also the customs reform as an important piece. Let me take this opportunity to mention similar process we have at the at the EU level compared to your internal work. In the coming weeks, we hope to conclude the trilogue negotiations with the European Parliament and the Council on the EU customs reform. It's actually supposed to happen in exactly 1 week. So we hope that this turns out then as planned. We appreciate that Ukrainian customs follows the advancements on our side. We will very soon, as I just said, have a stable legislative situation on the EU side. And obviously, this is an important step for you to follow in updating your legislation when the time has come. We will arrange technical consultations and explanatory sessions once our customs reform package is adopted. A last point on extremely critical elements, IT infrastructure and IT systems. Despite the topics listed for today's customs platform meeting, this is something which is always critical, always important. Our customs work requires digitalization, and the new digitization strategy will ensure good governance methods according to project management standards, clear timeline and division of tasks between the ministry, customs, and other stakeholders. We know that the updated IT strategy is ready for approval, ready, but not approved yet. And we encourage you to take required internal decisions soon and to proceed to the implementation phase. The full implementation of the new Ukrainian customs code will not take place without improvements in IT systems. And moreover, these improvements are going to be crucial for your further steps on integrating with the EU IT systems. And last year, Taxud provided the list of IT systems required for interoperability with the EU digital environment, together with additional recommendations, and that is still valid. To conclude, dear participants, I'm sure today's debate will bring important inputs and advance Ukrainian customs towards the EU. And I would like to thank you again for the invitation to this conference and hand over back to the moderator. Thank you very much for having invited the European Commission to your event.
Thank you very much, dear Mr. Pechka. Thank you for your kind words, and we fully understand, I must assure you, about our home exercise that we need to do with IT system, with the legislation, and I'm absolutely sure that our team can solve this all challenges. And I would like to ask one question. Frankly speaking, I know the answer, but I want everyone to hear it. If there are any possibility to postpone any custom provision from Union Custom Code on period after Ukraine accession to European Union? Just short question.
Sorry, again, please.
Is there any possibility to postpone any customs provision from Union Custom Code on period after Ukraine accession to European Union?
You're speaking about your customs code? I mean, or our new customs code, sorry.
Your Union Custom Code.
Well, we are now putting our new customs code in place, and we have a customs code in place. So we are for sure working on the full implementation on your side. And as I said, we will, in the light of the work which is now going to be finished with the implementation of the new code, have certainly a year or so ahead of us, where we wait for the relative, how should I say, administrative steps to be undertaken. We will, as soon as we have adopted the legislative package, as I said, we hopefully do this next week, we will have a certain administrative delay, which is due to the need for legal checks, translation into the various official languages. As usual, this is always a moment which takes time, and we will then essentially have a situation where we hope that before the end of the year, if all this work is undertaken quicker, then maybe even by the summer break, have a situation where this new customs code can come into effect, and we will then start to plan in the coming months leading to this transitional phase with regard to the new code. We are planning with our key partners, with our key international partners, dedicated sessions, as I said, in order to present the reform text, the new elements of the reform, and obviously also in detail what is changing in terms of provisions which are relevant, especially for the third countries. Now, in your situation, as you are preparing for enlargement, this is a particular challenge, because we will, with you, work extremely closely in this process. We need to make sure that your border protection service, which is very soon after enlargement going to be our border protection service, is fully up to speed and fully integrated into this EU system. And that's going to be something where we will have to closely work with you, much more than with other countries which are not envisaging to join the EU, and which will bring us even closer together in a almost daily cooperation relationship.
Thank you, dear Mr. Pechka, for your valuable participation on our Customs Platform 2026, and it was a great honor to hear you for us, and I hope the level of cooperation between Ukrainian institution and DJ Taxud will only increase in future. Thank you so much. І, шановні присутні, ми б могли б ще довго дискутувати, якою мала бути програма AEO.
Dear participants, in fact, we might still talk about the convention, unless Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine in 2019 did not pass the necessary legislation. Of course, some other pieces of legislation were adopted in 2022 and 2023. Therefore, currently we can observe the real practice of AEO and NCTS. With that, I would like to hand it over to Mr. Danilo Getmantsev, the chairman of the respective committee, which is in charge of all issues related to NCTS. Thank you. Over to you. Thank you. Glory to Ukraine. So, look, in fact, our committee is in charge of several tracks within the public finance area. Frankly speaking, European integration in the area of customs is the most developed area. We are very grateful to the Minister of Finance for their professionalism. We are grateful to our colleagues from MPs who reject the political agenda in this case. And we successfully develop the necessary laws. We have already adopted 11 European integration laws. Some of them have been pretty comprehensive. And as a result, there is just one step left, namely adoption of the customs code. Finally, after that step, our legislation will be fully aligned with the EU acquis. In some instances, we would like to see our colleagues from the Ministry of Finance to work a little bit faster, with all respect, because we know that sometimes the laws are not implemented as fast as we direct them. But we are trying to find the balance between different interests within the society, interests of business, interests of consumers, interests of the state and our partners, of course. So we are trying to strike this balance with due consideration of sometimes controversial issues. Thank you very much for this cooperation. Thank you, dear experts. Thank you, dear representatives of business and the Ministry of Finance. It seems that together we have achieved a significant progress. Today's statistics of authorized economic operators are very convincing. We see that AEO are in full operation, and this concept proved to be very successful. At some point of time, we faced certain resistance when we phased out of the simplified procedures and so on. But now I think that we are pretty successful. And let me also bring it to your attention that we've got the electronic waiting list or electronic line for the AO. But you know, it's disrespectful for business. It's disrespectful for authorized economic operators. It was really difficult to get the status, but still they have to be on this waiting list. The Cabinet of Ministers has to address this issue, and in particular, the Ministry of the Community Development has to make amendments to the respective regulations. The AO have to be somehow privileged in terms of the electronic waiting list. It seems that the AO status does not provide any benefits, and I have also already made 3 applications to the ministry, but there is still no answer. 3 years, prolonged years, we have been waiting, and I think that somehow the problem should be resolved. The Committee of the European Integration is very active, successful. I wish everyone else is as proactive as the committee is. Otherwise, we will have to be ashamed of our procrastination. Thank you, Danilo. Thank you for your reasonable observations. In fact, we at the Customs Service regularly discuss the issue of additional benefits for companies granted AEO status. However, there are some problems which we personally cannot address, and that's why there are still questions for the Ministry of Community Development. Traditionally, when the European Commission endorses the enlargement report, it describes the progress of the candidate countries. And according to the report, the European Commission expects the new customs code from Ukraine this year. So it's been already announced that the draft customs code will be submitted to the Verkhovna Rada in mid-April. So what are your expectations? Do you believe that it can be adopted at least in the first reading? What is the timeline? And is it possible to face any complications? Well, actually, when I said that some institutions should work faster, I basically implied this customs code. We know how much time it took to draft it. But of course, it's difficult to predict when it will be adopted. It's not like buying a ticket for a flight. The code is huge. It's comprised of 832 articles. It's over 500 pages of text. So it's a very huge document. We have an experience working with such documents. But, you know, our main function is to strike the balance. Definitely, we will initiate a public discussion. But given the size of this document, it won't be easy. And there are also some risks enshrined in this document. First, the non-taxable minimum. We don't have this opportunity to approve of the amount of non-taxable minimum. So this question will be deferred. So immediately I can tell you that if this element remains within the code, it won't be endorsed, it won't be adopted in the first reading. So I would recommend to remove it. And next topic is the investigative powers of the customs service. So it is possible to discuss this factor. If you appoint a head of the customs service, if you recruit new staff, it will be possible, I think. But with the current status quo, I think this issue still remains controversial. It's not that critical. It will be discussed, and it's not the first question we have to address. We are still waiting for the reactions from business. However, the discussion in the society has not yet commenced. Maybe the best business is still not realizing the fact that the customs code is upcoming. They have been waiting for 2 years, so they perhaps believe that it will take another 2 years to adopt it. But as soon as it is registered with the parliament, I would like the Ministry of Finance to initiate the process as soon as possible. So the sooner it is registered, the sooner it will be adopted, or at least it is the higher the likelihood is that it will be adopted. Yeah, business has to be more serious about the intentions of the authorities, because the authorities are pushing towards European integration. And another question, what challenges has your committee faced with during when working with the legislation aimed at European integration? Well, as soon as we adopt the European legislation, we have to cancel some of our procedures, and usually this provokes some tension and resistance from the business, because business is not ready for radical drastic changes. We, of course, have to deal with those issues, and in the tax area, the resistance is usually very high, and the same as the case with the customs area. Definitely, there will be new terminology and new procedures, and it is important to understand those procedures. And in order to understand those procedures, the companies have to be adapted, well adapted. We should provide a clear description and a clear explanation of those procedures. So this is a barrier, this is a serious challenge.
We should also take into consideration the practice of the European Court of Justice, and sometimes we find different precedents that provide more information about different provisions, and we also should adopt this. But of course, the main challenge is the war and uncertainty. We have a lot of provisions because of the war. These are some privileges, simplified procedures for defense area, so we will not cancel it by the end of the war, and we don't know when the war is over. That's what we don't know, when we can cancel this. And of course, this also generates additional challenges. But if there is a political will, if there is readiness, we can see from our practice that all these challenges we can overcome. Thank you. Thank you very much for this answer, and I would like to make one more example. And we have representatives of different authorities who are well aware of this, but the business circles are not aware of this, and this is the great illustration of the political will, which Mr. Gitmansov mentioned today, and it is directly related to the third session dedicated to NCTS in particular. So the convention is not that open, so we need invitation to be included there, and we got the invitation by the end of August 2022 during the full-scale invasion, and our European partners expected from us that by the end of August back then we'll be able to ratify this convention, to send all the documents to become the members of the convention from the 1st October. It was of great political and practical significance. And so our team had a lot of meetings with customs administration, in particular with the Poland, who refused to take our declarations because they were not aware about the convention. So the 30th of August, that was on Monday, and at 12 p.m. I was rather relaxed because I saw that the draft document was ratified with the Verkhovna Rada. And the miracle happened because these draft laws were submitted to the Verkhovna Rada in one day. Everything was considered by the Line Committee. It was voted for, it was signed for the head of the Verkhovna Rada. It was submitted to the president, and the president signed the document by the end of the day. So, and actually we had one more day for this ratification certificate. It was even more difficult, but unfortunately we cannot expect something like this now. Just, Danila, I'd like to say that would like to wish actually all of us to adopt all the Euro integration laws as fast as possible. Thank you very much. And here we need to understand that the implementation of the laws adopted by the Verkhovna Rada is impossible without bylaws. To implement AEO and NCTS, we had to develop a lot of regulatory acts, and of course the amount of pages was like more than several hundred, and the key part in developing the customs policy, developing the regulations in the Ministry of Finance, and the State Customs Service helps here a bit. But now I would like to give floor to Mr. Sergei Marchuk. Please cover the key achievements of the AEO and NCTS programs, and please share with us your future plans for the development of these programs. Thank you. First of all, I would like to continue the discussion and our cooperation with the legislative branch. And this cooperation, as I see it, is very fruitful. Sometimes there are some misunderstandings, some discussions, which is normal, but we are always able to define the common vision. So, as for the customs code, we continue our work. We've had only 63 meetings. We are planning to have 100 more meetings just to give answers to all the questions of the business representatives, of other market stakeholders, to discuss everything within the parliament to avoid any possible challenges. Because sometimes they say that we didn't listen to the business community. And in this case, hopefully it will be different, and we hope for a fruitful discussion within the parliament. And we can see that the parliament has a lot of tasks now because there are a lot of other important draft laws they should adopt. And I think that we need just to fulfill our basic tasks, and then we can discuss some systematic elements like the customs code. But I know that you support us in all our commitments that we are trying to actively meet, in particular as a part of our Euro integration paths and as the part of the commitments with the International Monetary Fund. So we have clear, transparent plans. So, of course, we understand our responsibilities, but this is a rather difficult discussion, rather difficult dialogue. But we are ready to this. Not always we're able to achieve results, but you know that during the process you can achieve other important results. And I think that this is the way we've chosen. As for our progress, you know, customs policy and customs affairs are rather unique issues. And so those people who have a proper understanding of what should be done are there, and maybe it is not that well known as tax policy, but it is still as important. And we can say that our European partners and when we assess the level of harmonization, we could note here a rather good level of preparation, and this is not our assessment. This is the assessment of the European Commission within Chapter 29, Customs Union. So the readiness of Ukraine was highly assessed by the European Commission. When it comes about the tasks completed, 96% of activities that we had planned were already fulfilled. Coming back to the topic of our today's conference, the AEOs, and so the whole story related to this, and I do remember when we issued license and certificate to the first AEO, that was a huge event, but now we have already 117 companies who've received these status. Only 5 operators have already received AEO as certificate. And of course, Danila, I can agree with you here about the cooperation with other ministries. It can't be like this, that if we adopt some simplified procedure and there are still some burdens related to the queue, it shouldn't be like this. We should solve this issue within the government, and at least I've got one task as a result of this conference. As for a common transit convention, more than 200,000 declarations have already been completed, and in 2024, Ukraine started using the main version of NCTS Phase 5. So we can see here rather active implementation. This means that we have teams, we have people who are interested in completing these tasks. And I'm sincerely thankful that this is not only the work of the government, the customs service, the legislative bodies, but also the business community that actively cooperates with us and shares their recommendation for us to constantly improve these processes. And I'd like to say that for the future, we really have this task to adopt the new customs code. And this is not only the legislative task, but this is the technical implementation of everything which is needed. We're now actively discussing the enhancement of our capacity, in particular IT capacity, the capacity of the Ministry of Finance, the bodies under the umbrella of the Ministry of Finance. This is important for the time when we will be ready to integrate, and the customs service and customs administration will be the first here, and we need to be ready to do this. This is a difficult process because there are a lot of systems that are present in our country. They are operative, but they are not fully in line with the EU standards. So for us now, it is one of the challenges, but we're actively working here. I'd also like to say that we are not going to stop within the range of issues that we are discussing today. We are not limited by these issues. So, for example, there is a quite interesting story about the tax threshold for small parcels. It is a very important question. It is our focus and the focus of our partners because of several issues. So this is a problematic saldo of our payment balance, and we need actually to solve this, and we need to make difficult decisions. And also, this is the issue of tax fairness. And the third issue, this is the misuse of small parcels to avoid tax payments. That's why we hope here for the constructive cooperation with the business, with the parliament. We know that there is support there. The mechanism that have already been offered by the team of the Ministry of Finance when it comes for taxation at the moment of purchase is also supported by the business. But here we need to make decisions not only at the legislative level, but also there is a difficult task of practical implementation. And I hope that business and all interested associations and the parties related to customs activities will support us. From my end, I'd like to say that, of course, the customs policy is one of the main policies of the Ministry of Finance, but taken into consideration our choice of becoming the EU member states and taking into account that the customs system is a key element of the whole integration, then we need to define it as our basic priority. Thank you very much, and I hope for fruitful cooperation.
Я від себе безперечно підтверджую
From my
нашу
end,
підтримку щодо питання
I'd like to say that for fully declare our support in the cancellation of any benefits related to the parcels. This is the requirement of our business because here we lose significant volumes of the production. We lose actually the working places. We lose here to China and also to other foreign manufacturers, and we tax our business. I cannot find any argument to support, to be against this decision, only like populistic decisions, apart from populistic decisions, but we will do everything possible just to achieve results here in the USA. There was the biggest threshold around $800, but they now have brought it to zero. What are the main stages of the harmonization of the of the Ukrainian legislation with the EU acquis? What we should expect here? Actually, we've discussed it already. So the basic legislative act is the new customs code. And in the nearest future, we are going to finalize the document. So the government will make the decisions needed to submit it to the Verkhovna Rada, to the parliament. We have a lot of meetings. There are some really important remarks and comments. We will work on them. The next stage is to develop the regulatory base for the new customs code. This is a difficult process. There are around 832 articles in the code. So we need to develop a regulatory framework, bylaws for every article. The government shall develop this to form the needed procedures and policies to be implemented. And one more important issue, I have already mentioned it today, this is the development of the capacity within the Ministry of Finance, with the Customs Service, for us to be able to fulfill our commitments. Sometimes we have situations when we have high-quality laws in line with the EU requirements, but we still have some issues with the practical implementation. We still have a room for improvement here, and we would like to thank our partners launching different types of projects that help us to develop our internal capacities for the future. And IT systems, IT element, and I've already mentioned this today, this will be a new challenge for all of us, because this means that we need to use completely different rules, new rules, that will also require a lot of efforts. And this is not about bureaucracy anymore. this is about involvement of proper experts who will be able to develop the new IT systems for the customs administration. I would like to sincerely thank the Ministry of Finance of Ukraine for the leading role in the Euro integration process. By us, I mean the State Customs Service and all our partners. And we together do everything possible to expedite this work. Thank you very much, dear Minister.
Тепер ми переходимо, мабуть, до найбільш
And now
складнішої частини. Це
we're
я кажу не як посадова особа в митниці, а
getting to the most difficult part. And here I say this not as the representative of customs administration, but a person involved in the implementation of different projects. So when everything is great on paper, but we need to implement this somehow.
Скажіть, будь ласка,
Mr. Zvagintsev,
практичні результати державного
tell us, please,
України
what
впроваджені програми AEO.
practical results
Використовують сьогодні систему спільного транзиту.
you can note with the introduction of AEO program, which is used by the operators, and what is the further steps for the development of these institution. Good afternoon.
Доброго дня, шановні колеги.
Good afternoon, dear colleagues.
Дуже приємно бачити таку широку аудиторію.
I'm happy to see so many participants today, and I'm happy to see the interest of our business community. To be honest, I won't say that everything is great in our service, but I can also say that it is not that bad. Thanks to our joint efforts of the Ministry of Finance, of the State Customs Service, our MPs, we were assessed by our European Commission, the IMF, and WCO that define
International
the
organizations
key progress in the
have
alignment
commended
of
our
our legislation
progress
and
in terms
also
of
the implementation of the new approaches in the customs area. We were rather highly assessed, so like the first ranks, and especially when it comes to the customs area.
Відверто скажу, для мене саме головне – це оцінка бізнесу.
The most important factor for me is business's response. The question is whether business is ready to implement new procedures. I'm sorry.
Це є якраз тим віддзеркаленням,
So the business's response basically reflects our efforts, our results. You know, I'm recalling now the school tests, and we had to run a certain distance. You know, some of my schoolmates managed to run the entire distance. Some of them stopped in the middle, and some reached the finish line, but with a rapid pulse and all other problems. So we do not want to look like that. We do not want to be exhausted and overwhelmed. There were certain situations, difficult situations. In 2019, the first law on the AO was adopted. The next iteration was adopted in 2021 and then in 2023. And it was just the beginning. And now we have for about 117 companies which have been granted the status of AO, and there are other companies that are interested in this scheme. We would like business to be ready for the European Union. We would like our business to be competitive and skillful in terms of using those mechanisms. We hope that business will learn how to use those new approaches to the customs clearance. And what are the advantages, in our opinion? What are the advantages of NCTS and the AEO program? The AEOs are already aware of their advantages and benefits. For instance, they have they enjoy some privileges, and they are prioritized in terms of clearance, and they have to be number one on the waiting list, and so on. And in April, hopefully, we will have the priority line, fast track line for AEO, for those who have registered with NCTS. And what else? The companies that enjoy some level of trust from the authorities can also enjoy less control over their operations. We have already launched the automated risk analysis system, and we have reduced the selectivity of this system to receive less signals regarding those companies, those trustworthy companies. And last year, we implemented the automated clearance for AOs. And this is the automated clearance for export declarations. As of now, over 60% of the declarations, export declarations, can be filled out in the automated mode, so there is no manual element. And last year also we have launched the automated clearance for imported goods. It's the trial operation at the moment. We are testing this system, and hopefully it will be successful, because thus we will simplify the operations for our companies and reduce the time for the clearance. Some colleagues, some colleagues from business, some companies are still considering the opportunities provided by AEO. There are also some indirect benefits, I would say. By joining, you get the opportunity to improve some of your internal matters, like control and security. You can, so to say, conduct a self-assessment, and this is very important for the business. During the next session, the colleagues who already have AO status will share their impressions. They will tell you about the benefits they are enjoying since they have been granted the status. As for the state, I would say frankly that those mechanisms give us an opportunity to focus more on the risk operations, those operations that require more scrutiny. And this doesn't mean, of course, that we have to disregard or ignore other companies, but basically the trustworthy companies will enjoy more simplifications and less control. This is a good opportunity for them to expand, to get more space, so to say, and more freedom of will. And by the way, Sergey has already provided some statistics on the use of mechanisms of over 280,000 declarations were completed altogether, but the half of this amount, 140,000, were completed in the automated mode. So this means that the service is gaining on popularity. So please join our
Дякую, пане Сергію.
services.
От,
Thank
це
you,
таке
thank you,
таке
Sergey. And on my own behalf, I would like to
з минулого, коли я ще не повернувся до митниці і
also
працював в
share
компанії,
a reminiscence.
тільки зароджувалася
As I worked in a
не
company
зароджувалася Верховна Рада, вже були
before
прийняті
I
відповідні зміни до
got to
митного
the
кодексу на
custom
2019
service,
рік. І я прийшов до нашого
it
ЦЕО,
was
генерального директора
2019.
компанії,
I approached once
на
our
20
CEO of the
листах
company I
виклав,
worked in, and
що нам треба
I
зробити в
approached him
компанії для того,
with
щоб просто
a,
провести
a
селф-скрінінг.
big
Чи взагалі ми можемо претендувати
proposal,
на статус АЮ, чи не
20-page
можемо.
proposal
І потім ще допустили рубежок,
regarding
що треба
this
зробити,
screening, which we had
виправити
to
для того, щоб
complete
ми
before we
стали
could
відповідати цьому
apply for
статусу.
the
І ви це так
AO
от відкласти,
status.
сказати,
And
це
then there
не
were also
цікаво, це
40
багато
pages
роботи
of
і багато
potential improvements. And
працегодин.
he
Тому я
just
завжди,
ignored
коли
this document, said
на
it's
зустрічах
too
з
much work and we don't need
новоспеченими,
it at
скажімо так,
all.
операторами, які
And
бажають отримати
now, when I meet
сертифікат, це
the
право, це не обов'язок відповідно,
AOs
це за зверненням
who are willing
суб'єкта. Я
to get
завжди
some certificates from
СЕО,
us,
генеральних
I
директорів, керівників компаній
always commend
дякую за відповідальне лідерство, за те,
CEOs
що вони
and the
взялися
other
за цей
companies'
шлях, налагодили
representatives
відповідні процеси.
on
Велике
their
підприємстві, в них є особа відповідальна за митні
leadership.
питання, в
They
них немає там
also
проблем з порушенням митного
uh,
законодавства, в них
enjoy
відповідна
now
облікова
some
політика,
benefits. They have no
складські
issues
обліки і таке
with the
інше.
customs
Тому,
legislation. They
колеги,
have
щиро
improved
всіх
their policies
продовжую того, що
of
сказав пан Сергій
warehouse
і пан
management, for instance, and
тоді
so on. So they
Марченка.
really have
Всіх закликаю
some achievements
щонайшвидше
to
йти
be
в
proud
програму
of.
АІО-Б
So
на
I'm
безпеку та
urging you
надійність, що ми
to
зараз
join the
5
program
всього операторів, нам треба
AOB as
10 для
soon as possible.
початку
There are just 5 operators that
перетворювати
are
угоду про
currently
взаємне
participating
визнання
in the program, but we
операторів
need
між
10
Україною
of
та
them
ЄС.
before
Отримавши
we
такий
start
статус в Україні,
negotiations with the
з
EU
декількох
on a
років
mutual
цей статус буде визнаватися в
recognition.
Європейському
In a
Союзі,
couple of
саме
years, this
АІО-Б.
status
Тому,
will
будь
be
ласка,
recognized by the
користуючись
EU.
сьогоднішньою нагодою, дайте
So,
платформу
using this
активу всіх закликати.
opportunity, I would like to
Пане
urge you to
Сергію, в мене
join
питання,
the
а яким
AOB
чином на
program.
сьогоднішній
And I have a
день
question for Mr.
дізнаються
Sergey.
авторизації, здійснюється робота по
What
оцінці
is
відповідності,
currently
що це за
the
процес і
way to assess the
скажімо так, є транспарентним,
conformity and
зрозумілим.
what transparency is this process characterized by?
Колеги, з самого початку, коли
Oh, colleagues,
ми
let's start
помітили те, що
from the very beginning.
бізнес неохоче використовує ці
And,
інструментарії,
Initially, we noticed that business was reluctant to
що потрібно
employ new tools, and our task was to provide necessary explanations. And this guidance and the support is still provided to mainstream the mechanisms.
стосується як і
And
програмних операторів,
this support is provided for the AO program and for
процедури спільного транзиту.
NCTS.
Для того, щоб сфокусувати саме увагу на цих
It is
напрямах,
really necessary
два
to
департаменти в центральному
focus on those two areas. To that end, we set up two dedicated departments.
зосереджує свою увагу виключно на
Those departments provide administrative services
бізнесу.
solely to the authorized economic operators.
Максимальну увагу
Thus, we try to
тим інструментаріям, які на сьогодні
focus on the tools that at the moment are demanded by the companies. So briefly, that's it.
найближчу перспективу.
Regarding the
Замітили, я би
nearest future, you have rightly said that
оце все-таки
the
на
AOC companies are welcome to participate in AOB program. As a result, we will start the respective negotiations with our European partners. In the short-term prospect, we are waiting the transition to the NCTS 6 phase. And at the moment, we are negotiating with the brokers community. They have to understand the changes and they have to be ready for the use of this tool. And definitely, we are going to continue working on for the simplification for authorizations. And there are nearly 1,100 of those authorizations at the moment, and the number of applications is growing. So thank you, business, thank you, companies, for joining in. And I would like also to make an observation on the customs code. Indeed, it's a huge job. Today we have already mentioned the schedule. It's of course always difficult to draft a document, but as soon as the document is ready, it's easy and faster to make necessary amendments. And the Ministry of finance is ready to cooperate with the parliament and with the business. Hopefully, those efforts will be
Я хотів
highly
би щиро
appreciated
подякувати
by
вам, пане
both.
Сергій, та вашій команді за
Thank you,
професійне та
Sergey.
заангажоване ставлення до впровадження
Thank
програми
you,
АІО та
um,
системи спільного
the
транзиту в
team,
Україні.
for
Це не лише
your
особисте ставлення, це зворотній зв'язок від
active
бізнесу,
participation
які
in the
долучаються до зазначених
implementation
програм, а
of
також особливо
AEO
від партнерів
program.
та
This is
інвесторів.
not my
Хотів би
personal
також
opinion.
почути та
This
пана
is
Матіаса
the
Крейті. Сподіваємось
assessment.
на
This is
подальший розвиток цього
from our
напрямку в Україні. І ще
international
раз щиро дякую
uh,
вам. І вже
partners.
очікуємо
Hopefully,
останнього
the
спікера. Він
institution
має
of
бути на підході до
AEO
Тараса Качки,
will
але я все ж хотів
be
України. А
successful
ось
in
зустрічається
future. And
пан
we're still
Тарас.
waiting for our next speaker, Mr. Taras Kachka.
Ми якраз вже проговорили основний комплекс питань по розвитку програми
We
авторизованих
have
економічних операторів
already
і
discussed the main issues of AEO
автоматизованої
program
платіжної системи в
and
Україні. І от якраз питання до вас. От
NCTS.
ви як
And
людина, яка
we
тримає
have the
компас
following
нашого
question
руху
for
до
you.
Європейського Союзу,
You
координує ключові
are
переговори з
heading
Брюсселем.
and
Ви бачите
coordinating
всю
the
картинку,
key
весь пазл євроінтеграції.
negotiations with
І
Brussels.
питання до
You
вас, як до
know the entire
віце-прем'єр-міністра
picture
з
of the
питань
European
європейської
integration. So
євроатлантичної
the
інтеграції, пане Тарасе,
question
в цьому
for
великому
you,
пазлі, яку
as for the
частину
Vice
займає
Prime
глава
Minister,
29 Митний
for
Союз,
European and
де ми
Euro-Atlantic
знаходимось,
integration.
і на якому рахунку наших європейських партнерів,
Where
і що ж
are
треба
we
нам ще
in
зробити з
terms
вашої
of
точки зору в цьому
our
напрямку?
accession process and what do we have to accomplish?
протилежне. І це буде
Thank you.
якраз дуже гарний приклад
Unfortunately, I
реалізації міжурядової
failed to
парламентської
hear everyone
злагодженої роботи.
before
Але
me,
якщо
but
я скажу
hopefully I
щось в
won't
підтримку, то тоді,
say
значить, злагодженості є.
anything
Тобто зараз
against your
перевірки.
opinions.
Тому
If I say something to support you, this will be another
насправді
proof of our
дев'ятий
alignment.
розділ
So,
переговорів.
first and
Ми
foremost,
якраз я оце це
29th
ми отримали
chapter,
бенчмарки
I
по
came
цьому
back
теж
to Ukraine
по
just
29-му
today
по митній справі.
at 9,
І
and we
в
already
нас
received
насправді
the
є
benchmarks,
розуміння
including the benchmarks for the
того,
customs
що це
service. We have the understanding of the fact that
тому
this
що
is the most
зрозуміло, що
important
найважливіше
chapter.
серед найважливіших це верховенство права.
But of course, the rule of law
Це
is
без
of
будь-яких
paramount
сумнівів і
importance
дискусій.
Nobody has any doubts regarding that. But the next question in terms of importance is the topic of customs and the free movement of goods. Unless we implement 29th chapter, our EU integration will make no sense, because otherwise we will be still living behind the borders. And in terms of our progress, we received very good comments in the enlargement report. We are highly integrated according to the evaluation. It's a paradox, basically. We have so many criticisms regarding the customs service. And finally, we see in the report that the integration is on a high level. AOE and NCTS are a bridge towards the practical integration with the EU. Those are tools that are really trustworthy. The European Union trusts our trust individual decisions of our customs service, and uh, those tools help the companies to fine-tune their internal processes so that it is easier for them to operate within the European Union. So from this point of view, these tools are also incredibly significant. And I think that now everyone is waiting for this present for the Parliament, for the Верховна Rada, in form of the new customs code. If I'm not mistaken, it will be the fifth or the seventh draft of the customs code, but this one finally will be fully aligned with the UCC. And as far as I remember, the first iteration of the customs code was submitted to the Верховна Rada in 2011 and 2012, and at that time there were three columns on the comparative table. We compared our customs code with European code and with Russian code. At this time, we have the comparison just with the European legislation. And so who knows what happens to the rule of law, but I'm absolutely sure that we'll be fully aligned in terms of the customs legislation. Thank you.
Дякую, пане Тарасе. До речі, гарний приклад про порівняльну таблицю з
Thank you, Mr. Kachka. That is a great example of the concordant table with the UCC and Russian Customs Code. AEO and NCTS are two programs that take us from the philosophy of the Soviet mindset, from the total control over the goods, to the European approach of the monitoring of the activities in the companies. Because this is important, because all the operations and activities related to excessive goods will be taken into consideration in the company's records. So this is how it helps us to step back from the Soviet system. And Taras, I have more questions from you. What are strategic priorities which are defined by the government? If it's possible, top three such priorities. And we actually have three of them. This is customs code. So this is our first task. The second question, this is the institution, the customs service. So the competition is ongoing. The head of the customs service, and this is great that we have the possibility to wait for it. Thanks to the deputy head of the acting head of the customs service. So this is an institutional issue, and institutional issues will be the most important for all areas, not only for the customs administration. Just not to make impression that there is some special requirement only to the customs administration. Actually, we should expect institutional enhancement and development of all areas of governance. And the third priority is this is streamlining of all the tools. So this is like this technical connection. And here I would like to mention once again AEO and NCTS. So these are the tools that connect to all these customs elements. Because upon accession to the EU, we must ensure that the customs administration is fully aligned with the EU rules, with the UCC, and we should also ensure all those technical mechanisms, the forms of the declarations, etc. So to make us fully interoperable with all these, with this network, and that the EU member states can fully trust Ukraine in this network. So it is clear. We would like, I would like to assure you that Chapter 29 is the focus of the State Customs Service and the Ministry of Finance. And over the last 3 years, the customs area was among leaders when it comes to the assessment. And I'd like to assure you that we won't let you down, either you or the state. I would like to conclude that the European Union is a customs union. That's why customs activities is the basic element for further integration into the EU. The main tools that we have to achieve this is the new customs code. Then during the fourth panel today, we will discuss in more details this issue, as well as IT issues and the capacity. AEO and NCTS are developing. We have clear legislative framework, the regulatory acts, and we have rather good results when it comes to the number of AEOs that we have in Ukraine, simplifications that substituted the old approach of the declarations. So the amount of declarations increased in 2 times, comparing the launch of the system. And now I would like to invite everyone to a coffee break, and after the coffee break we will continue with the companies who have already received an AEO status. Thank you very much for your attention.